Hello, welcome back to Legal and Art. Legally Raven here. We're going to talk about the arises out of element. All right, so let's go here to our connected. Oh. Connected casebook website. Here we go. So we can read it online. Casebook Connect. Love this website. We're going to log in. And we are going to what? All right, so let's keep going here. We're going to page 233, where we talk about the arise out of element. So far, we have glossed over two ambiguities regarding the meaning of arises out of element. The first ambiguity relates to how a court determines whether a particular claim arises out of a context. The second is whether the court can establish personal jurisdiction over all claims in a case as long as one claim arises out of the defendant's contact with the forum. Good questions. Okay. Determining when a claim arises out of a contact. The Supreme Court has not spoken clearly on the issue, so the lowest courts have developed several distinct approaches to determining whether a claim arises out of the defendant's contact. One popular approach is the evidence test. According to this test, the claim arises out of the defendant's in-state context only if the defendant's forum contact provides evidence of one or more elements of the underlying claim. See Linda Sandstrom, Simrat, Meeting Expectation, two profiles for specific jurisdiction, 2005. I think a common approach is the but-for test. All right, so the but-for test. Under the but-for framework, which has been adopted in the Ninth Circuit as well as other courts. A claim arises out of a contact if the claim would not have arisen but for the defendant's contact with the state. As illustrated below, the but-for test represents a more expansive approach to personal jurisdiction, satisfying either test. Hotel Alaska operates a hotel in Alaska. The hotel's marketing department in Anchorage regularly sends advertising materials through the mail to businesses around the country. These advertisements describe the hotel's low corporate rates and beautiful facilities. One Massachusetts business, People Tech, receives the advertisement and engages in some telephone negotiations with the hotel about room rates. After agreeing to a special corporate rate for People Tech employees, the company books a convention at Hotel Alaska. When People Tech employees arrive at Hotel Alaska, they discover the hotel does not look anything like the photographs in the glossy advertisement. The facilities are in poor condition and the convention is a disaster. People Tech subsequently files a lawsuit in Massachusetts for consumer fraud against Hotel Alaska. Hotel Alaska moves to dismiss the person on grounds of personal jurisdiction should the court grant the motion. No, the Hotel Alaska directed a contact into Massachusetts, the advertisement, and the lawsuit is about the truthfulness of the advertisement. Under either of the commonly used approaches, the claim arises out of the in-state contact. The advertisement, the contact with Massachusetts, would be essential evidence regarding the consumer fraud claim, i.e. the advertisement would be offered as evidence to support the consumer fraud claim. So it would satisfy the evidence test. Moreover, it would also satisfy the but-for test. The claim would not have arisen but for the defendant's contact with Massachusetts. Satisfy only one test. Now assume that the facilities were as advertised and People Tech began to send many employees to the hotel. During one of these business trips, a People Tech employee drowns in the hotel swimming pool. The descendant's family sues the hotel in Massachusetts, claiming the hotel's negligence caused the tragic accident. The hotel contests personal jurisdiction should the court grant this motion. The facts are loosely based on Nowak v. Tech Howe Investments, 1996. The answer depends on the approach 2 arises out of the court adopts. Under the evidence test, the issue is whether the hotel's contact with Massachusetts, the advertisement is essential evidence of the claim. Unlike the first case where the advertisement was used as evidence to support the claim of fraudulent advertising, the claim here turns on whether the hotel was negligent in its maintenance of the swimming pool. The advertisement offers no evidence regarding any element of the claim. So if the court adopts this approach, it would likely conclude personal jurisdiction does not exist. By contrast, the but-for test would probably support personal jurisdiction. In particular, the claim would not have arisen but for the hotel's attempt to solicit business in Massachusetts. Courts applying this looser standard would be likely to uphold personal jurisdiction over the hotel in Massachusetts. Satisfying either test. Now assume that the person who drowned was an employee of People Tech, but that she was staying at the hotel on vacation, not for business, and that she had heard about the hotel from another People Tech employee who had stayed there on business. Would there be personal jurisdiction over the hotel in this case? As in the second example, the evidence test would not be satisfied here. The advertisement being the only Massachusetts contact offers no evidence regarding whether the hotel was negligent. In contrast, the but-for test might be satisfied. It appears that the employee went to the hotel because colleagues at People Tech had stayed there on business and had recommended it. In that case, the employee would not have stayed at the hotel but for the hotel's original advertisement in Massachusetts. At some point, however, the causal link between the contacts and the claim becomes too attenuated that personal jurisdiction is problematic. One possible argument against personal jurisdiction is that the claim is too far removed from the initial contact to form a basis for personal jurisdiction, even under the but-for test. Alternatively, one could argue that even if the situation satisfies the but-for test, a court should reject personal jurisdiction on the ground that it would be unfair under the reasonableness factors. A third argument is that neither test should apply and that a court should assess the relationship between the contact and the claim under a more flexible standard and decide whether the claim is sufficiently related to the contact to support jurisdiction. See William and Richmond Review Essay 1, Causal Jurisdiction in Civil Actions, Part 2, a sliding scale to supplement the distinction between general and specific jurisdiction. The third argument may capture what many courts actually do, especially those courts that have not yet chosen between evidence and the but-for test. Regardless of the particular approach that the court adopts, it seems likely that a court would not entertain personal jurisdiction in a case like this one. Summarizing the ambiguity, these examples illustrate how unclear the arises out of concept is. In fact, courts and commentators have adopted several other approaches in addition to the evidence and but-for test, including the reasonableness idea that the rigor of the arises out of elements should vary depending on how strong the contexts are and how strongly the reasonableness factors weigh in favor of jurisdiction. Judges, lawyers, and law students will have to struggle with this uncertainty until the United States Supreme Court addresses the issue more clearly. The focus on claims, not cases. Another common question is whether a court can establish personal jurisdiction over all claims in a case if only one claim arises out of the defendant's contact with the forum. Imagine, for example, that in the Hotel Alaska case, People Tech brings a single lawsuit, but alleges two claims. First, it alleges the hotel's advertising material was fraudulent. Second, it alleges negligence because the employee who drowned in the pool was important to People Tech. The hotel's negligence caused People Tech to lose substantial income. Is there personal jurisdiction over both claims? Fortunately, the answer to this question is clear. Aside from a very limited and controversial exception involving a narrow category of federal claims, a court must have personal jurisdiction over each individual claim. A court cannot typically assert personal jurisdiction over the entire case simply because the court has personal jurisdiction over one of the claims. Although there is personal jurisdiction over the fraudulent advertising claim, the court would not necessarily have personal jurisdiction over the negligence claim. People Tech will have to demonstrate that each claim arises out of the defendant's contact. If it cannot do so, if People Tech wants to litigate both claims in a single court, People Court must file its lawsuit in Alaska. All right, so this is what we just learned about the arises out of element. Thank you for tuning in to Legally Nor Read.